So hello guys, and welcome to yet another tutorial. So in today's video I was thinking I'm going to be creating a playlist of tutorial videos that will put you through coding challenges to help you level up your programming skills and to help you become a better programmer and reach that 10x programmer level. This will be a collection of different resources and interview questions, coding questions I have seen both online and some personal experience. So I'll be gathering resources from some of the best sites that I use, and also from the ones I've picked up online. So for today's video we'll be focusing on a popular tool known as the WC tool. The WC tool is a word count tool that is native to the Unix or Unix each operating systems like the Mac OS and the Ubuntu operating system. So what the WC does, it is a CLI software. It is a CLI program that takes a file path as an input, and it returns either the number of words in that file, the number of characters, the number of bytes, and so on. So we're going to be building our own implementation of that using Node.js, okay? And yeah, it's going to be fun. So quickly, let me show you a sample of it. So I made this globally available to my local system, so I can run it from any directory. So if I just do pwc is my own implementation of it. You get this figlet text that says WC2 and an error message that tells you no file paths have been specified. So if I cd into a particular file, let me cd into source pwc, then so I'll pass in an option, a flag of L, to return the number of lines. Then the file I want to use, I'll be using this test file wc.txt. So we get the total number of lines in the file being 7,146, and to check that, this is a very huge file. To check that, you can see that the files are indeed 7,846. Now this is just one thing you can do. You can check the number of words, you can check the number of characters, the number of bytes, you can check the longest line in the file, and many more. There are a total of 58,164 words there. So yeah, we're going to write the code to build our own implementation of the word count tool, and you get to test it out. So without wasting too much of your time, let us get into it. So I'm going to clear up this whole file. Okay, I will clear up this whole file. Apart from the comments, I'll leave the comments so you get to understand what is going on. Now before I start any application, let me remove this. This is a shebang. I will explain what it does later. before writing any application, it's good for you to sit down and gather your thoughts together, sit down and lay out your structure, your plan, and how you plan to approach a solution. So usually what I do is maybe create a readme file, and you write out your steps there, or you can just use comments, or use JS doc, and write it out. This makes your coding easier and makes it more accessible, for future developers. If you come back to your code next month, a year from now, you wouldn't be lost, and you can easily navigate and find out what it is doing. So I said this challenge is to build your own version of the Unix line to WC. It takes the command line option C and outputs the number of bytes in the file. Okay, the initial inspiration I got from this was from codingchallenges.com, and I listed out the flags that we'll be using. We have the L flag, number of lines, as you've seen, the W flag for the number of words. We'll also be using the B flag for bytes, M for characters, capital L for the longest line, V for version of the two, and H for to output a help message. Okay, then a default option, if none is passed, maybe we would run a few commands. Okay, you can do that. You can do the default option. So what I did, if none was passed, then I will just return this figlet ASCII text like this to make it look more appealing. Okay, so without wasting your time, let us get into it. Now let's break it down step by step. What do we want to achieve? We want to be able to read file inputs from our command line. Okay, we want to be able to read file inputs from our command line. We want to be not just file inputs, commands, options, arguments passed into our command line. Then we want to process those to give out certain output. So we have three factors in place here. I think we have the command line, we have the command line. Yes, we have. So we'll have to work with a package or a tool that allows us to create commands and read commands. Okay, then we have the FS package that is available in Node that will allow us to read files, create files, and so on and so forth, both asynchronously and synchronously, and also write to files. Then we'll be using the Figlet tool for just for aesthetics, because we like to be a little bit extra. So let me open up the npm page of the Figlet tool so you see it. Another package we'll be using is the Commander package. Then so you can easily see what they are doing. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all this. I'll delete it's going to take a little bit of time. So just in your command line, we are going to be installing, you run npm I commander, and we also want to install Figlet. So those are the two, npm I Figlet and Commander.js. Those are the two that we want. So if you ever come across any application, like let's say you're using Hard Hat, or you're using is it available in Tailwind? I'm not sure if it's available in Tailwind, but you see, you run some packages and you see all those cool ASCII text displaying, and you wonder how they're able to get it to work. Is with the function of this Figlet package. is with the help of this Figlet package. So we're going to install that to make our this thing more appealing to the eye. So in our once you run that, it should install. I'm not going to do that because I already have them. I already have the packages installed. Okay, once you run that, it should install. Then you have your node modules, your package.lock, and your package.json files. Okay, then you want to create a source folder. You create a source folder. Then in your source folder, you can create a file wc _2.js. Whatever you call, you can call your name your file anything, either index.js or app.js, anything you want to name it. Well, I'll leave mine as wc2, but whatever name you give your application, you have to come to your package.json and specify it in the main. You have to specify it in the main, and also in some other things that we'll do. I'll talk about that towards the end of the video. So once you have that, let us begin coding. So the first thing we are going to need is Figlet. So let us quickly import that Figlet, and that is coming from Figlet. Another thing we need is the fs module. This is inbuilt in Node.js, so we will import that. Then lastly, we are going to the structure command from Commander.js. Remember that we installed. So we have those 3 packages. Okay, then the next thing you want to do is to create a new instance of the command package. So we want to create our own we want to create a new instance of it. So we'll do that by we'll use the word program equals to new command. Okay, we have created a new instance of this command class that we imported, and this will provide us with different methods that we can use to build our application. Then this is just the boilerplate code, and it might seem, when you come across a task like this, it might seem very tedious, but that's why I broke it down in the first place, saying that just know what you need. We needed access to the command line, and that is what this package will provide for us. Okay, we need to be able to read files. Okay, we need to be able to read files and file paths that are passed, and also create, if the case may be. Okay, and then this is just for aesthetics. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is to give our program a name. So come back to their documentation here. You see, for the quick start, you see there are 2 most used option types are Boolean option. Okay, no, we don't need that. So the quick start is you create a name for your application. Okay, then you pass it a description and a version and all that. Then you can create sub commands. Sub commands mean commands that you run below your original app command. So once you do program.new command, okay, once you do program.new command, you're creating an instance of this command class. So this program is already a command in the sense that it is already if you pass it to the command line, if you run it in the command line, it should do something, or it should trigger something. Okay, so if you do program.command again, then you're creating a sub command that is under this initial program. So meaning when you run this program, when you run this first program, you should be expecting a second argument, which is the command that you've created with this command method. but we don't want to create a sub command. We want to be able to run our wc2 like this. Maybe wc, then we'll just pass a flag. Okay, if we create a sub command, then we'll have to do something like wc. Okay, then we'll pass another command, let's say wc again, before we're able to now pass any flags. That is what a sub command will do. Okay, so that is not what we want. So we'll then do program dot, we'll give it a name. Okay, you can give yours anything, but I will maintain pwc, or let's just keep wc for simple. You can use your abbreviations, then concatenate it with wc. Then we also want to add a description. And we'll say a simple implementation of the Unix command, wc command. Then you can maybe pass by your name or whatever. You can pass by your name. The AI suggestion is going to ChatGPT, so you can pass by your name. So I will do a so you give it your name, whatever name you want. Then the next option we're going to pass will be a version. Okay, you might think that to pass a version you can do something like this. Okay, but this wouldn't work. It won't return the actual version number for you. It won't return the actual version number for you. So we have to pass in the method for version. It says set the program version to a string. This method auto registers the v version flag, which will print the version number when passed. Okay, so we are going to pass in the version as a string, and we'll pass 1.0.0. There are different version naming conventions. Okay, there are different version naming conventions. I won't go through that, but you can do any one you want. You can go with 0.0.1, but I'll be going with 0.0.0. okay, so we'll pass the remaining flags, which will be option for B for bytes, okay, the long form, then a description outputs the number of bytes. W for word, the long form, then the description. Then we'll pass L for lines and M for characters. Let us quickly do that. In fact, let's just copy this and paste it here. which other one do we need to pass? Capital L for longest line. I think that's all. Okay, then you pass the help option to be able to return. If you want to be able to display help information about your CLI to users, this is the command you will use, the help option. Okay, so you can pass in flags and description to override the help flag and help description for your command. Passing false to disable the built-in help this thing. So I'll pass in H for the short form. Okay, then output help information. Okay, these arguments is to modify, because by default Commander does handle a few things for you, like once you run your app for the first time, information like the usage of your thing, the version, and the help informations will be available to you, but you can override them. So to override the default list of arguments, so you pass in this arguments method. Okay, so I will explain that later on, but this should do. Okay, as we've listed out all the available features of our application. Okay, then what we'll have to do is to, alright, let me program dot So at the beginning of this video, I showed you guys something, so I will work with my own implementation, that's pwc, and this will run a wc2, and you can see this displayed for you. Alright, now if I run this application, let me console. Okay, alright, let's go on. The next thing we need to put in is action to define a list of actions, and this will take a callback function. Alright, so this will take a callback function and a parameter or an argument called options. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to access the file that is passed. Now currently our application, what if this application is complete the way we have written it and the way we defined our options? If we run wc in our command line, okay, run wc in our command line with the flag, let's say b. Alright, if we run it like this, we expect the number of bytes to be returned to us. Okay, but we don't know what file we should read to be able to return the number of bytes. Are you with me? So at this point we will have to either implement a way to read whatever directory we are in, whatever current directory we are in, to read whatever file that is there, if there's any, which is ambiguous and quite overboard for the use case of this application. But what we'll have to do is, you see in this place where we are passing in the long form, we can pass in another argument that takes in a file, the file path, and that file path can either be required or optional. So to make a file path required, you pass in angle brackets like this. Okay, whatever name you give inside, it doesn't matter. I can do and Kong, it don't matter. Okay, this will just be displayed in the help message, but it is advisable to use whatever you are expecting, which is a file or file name. Okay, so this will indicate that a file path is required for this flag. Okay, if we want to make it optional, then we'll pass square brackets. Now this means whether or not you provide a file path, our application will still run, it won't crash out. But with the angle bracket, if you do not provide it, our application will crash out. Okay, so let me revert that, and we want to do the same because we want to be able to read whatever file path that is passed. So we want to do the same for all of our arguments, all of our options, apart from the help and the version. Okay, so now we can be able to access whatever file path that is passed to our application. Okay, so because I've written this multiple times, I don't want to write, so you'll now be able to do this. Now, how you might be saying, how does file let me also console.log this process.args for you, so you understand, because I will explain that too. Okay, so let me create, if no file is available, we want to return an error. I will say no file specified, please provide a file. Let me add an emoji. Okay, then we'll do an early return to end our application. You can do a process.exit. So let me run this application currently now, so I can be able to explain to you how and why I am referencing file here. Okay, so if I do Node.wc2.js, we defined our figlet test. Okay, we have defined our figlet test. I forgot that it wasn't recording when I wrote this, but to do that, you just do a console.log and you pass in your figlet. Okay, .text-sync. This will write whatever you want in an asynchronous manner. You can pass in whatever you want. Then this is the layout. Okay, this is the layout, horizontal. There are different options. They are full, I think. There are different options. You can go through their documentation. That is why I opened it up over here. You can go through their documentation. There's horizontal layout, vertical layout. Okay, there's default, there is full, there is some other options. Okay, there is fitted and smushing, so you can choose which one to specify. All right, then you can see when we ran this, we got an error because we didn't specify any file paths. Okay, so no file specified, please provide a file path. For options, we are getting an empty object. Then for process.args, argument, we are getting this. Now what process the argument does, it just returns an array of whatever you've written in the command line. It returns it as an array to Commander and says, hey, this is everything that was written in the command line. Now do your job and match it with whatever options that you have in your code. Okay, so node will be the first, which is the file path to where node is located in our system. Then the file path to whatever JavaScript file you want to run or process you want to run. So if to say I did this and I passed in a flag forward, okay, and I gave a file path, because remember in our options we said that this is required. So my file path will be test file wc.txt. okay, if I run that, now we are seeing a different thing. The options object is no longer empty. Why? And then the array of arguments, we have two extra options, which is the flag we just added and the file path. So if you have 100 arguments, it will just bundle it up into an array. Then Commander begins to match whichever options to know what argument you want to process. Okay, then for options, what options are, it is nothing more than everything we wrote here. You see the long form of all these flags we passed, that is what options is. Okay, so you have lines, words, longest, characters. That is what options are. So we chain the action to our options to be able to access them. Okay, and that is how we know that, because we specify that a file is required for each option, and our application is not built in a way to accept multiple options. We are only taking one option at a time, though you can modify and iterate on these to accept multiple options. We are only taking one option at a time. So we know that if I pass in a flag like to return the number of words in a file, my next argument should be a file path. Okay, it should be a file path. So because only one of these things can be true at a time, that is why we are using this logical OR to check any one that has a file path next to it. That means that is the command that the user wants to run. That is the argument. That is the option the user wants to use. So return that file path for me. I don't know if you're with me. So here you can see words. These words is nothing but these options, and these options is nothing but this. So because this is here, it automatically means it's meant to accept a file path, and that is why you're seeing this. Okay, so if I used another argument, like another flag like L or C or B, it will be bytes, longest, whatever, then the file path. Okay, I hope we are together. Then what else are we going to do? We'll specify the file path and we'll handle the edge cases. So we'll have to be able to read a file. Okay, so to do that, we'll create a variable which will be the contents of the file in a buffer. Then we'll wrap the process in a try and catch. Alright, so we're going to try to read that, and what will we do? Contents should be equal to fs.readFileSync, and we pass the file we want to read and the encoding method we want to use. So you can either do a console or log, which is not necessary, but you come here to handle edge cases in case maybe the user passed in a wrong file path, or a file path that is non-existent, or something. So this should catch the error, and we'll do a console.error. Okay, let me pass in an emoji there. Error reading file, you pass in the message that it is, and we will gracefully crash our application by using an early return, or you can do a process.exit and you pass the code in 1, but I'm not going to do that. So yeah, we are reading the file now. What else is to none, because currently you see, even though we passed the flag and a file to read, our application didn't necessarily do anything aside from the logs that we have here. Okay, our application doesn't know what to do with the file path that it has, so it is not doing anything. So we need to be able to pass actions to each file path, to each options. We need to pass actions to each options to be able to handle, to process what we want that option to handle. Okay, so we are going to check for each option. How I am going to do that is I will pass an if. So if the options if the options, sorry, I spelled that wrong. If options.help, what are we going to do? We're going to call program.help. This is optional. If you are going to call program.help, okay, this will output the help information and it will exit. Okay, so you can add this or not. Even if you don't add this, this is optional. Even if you don't add it and you run the h command, because we've used this help option flag, it automatically return this text message that we have. Okay, but then you do if options, if the flag passed was bytes flag, what do we want to do? We want to call a byte function, a calculate byte function that we are going to create. Okay, it is not yet available. Sorry, let me put that into template strings. So I'll say bytes. Okay, yes. So then I'll do count bytes and I'll pass the file content that we read. Okay, I hope we are together. We are going to create these methods. If the flag passed was that of the characters, we are going to call our count characters method. If it was that of words, we are going to call our words function. If it is longest or lines, okay, let's do lines. What are we going to do? We'll call our lines function, and lastly, if it is longest, we'll call our longest. So if options.longest console.log, then we want to return longest line. let us call it find longest line. And we pass in content. Okay, so we've handled those edge cases: characters, words, line, bytes. Is there any other one that we are missing? Longest. Yeah. Then it's time for us to actually define functions. We have to actually create these functions that we wrote out here. So let us start with the first. So we have function. Let us do count bytes, and remember we need to pass in this content. What is this content? Content is nothing but the buffer from reading the file. Okay, so we will, because it is a buffer, we will do buffer dot byte length. Because we want to return the byte length, we will do buffer dot byte length, and we'll pass content. Simple as that. Yeah, to count bytes accurately. Then for function dot count words, if you can pause the video and write out the method on how to count the words. It's actually very easy. Since we are getting the content, we can split it by, yes, you got it right, by white spaces. We can split by white spaces and we'll be able to return the length. Okay, so count words, and we pass in content. Okay, then we will return dot split. We'll pass a regex. And we return the length. Simple as that. You can also trim it at the end to remove any extra spaces, to prevent any miscalculations and all that. So yeah, I think we are done with that. On to the next, to count lines. Okay, how will we do that? Simple, break by line breaks. We will split by line breaks, count lines. And you see, when you come across this in the first time, you might be thinking, how will I solve this? But that's one thing about being a developer, being a software engineer. You take your time and you break down the application, or you break down your solution into achievable chunks, and you see that you'll be amazed what you can do. Okay, so what do we want to do? We want to split by white space, by carriage returns and line breaks. So we do content. What is wrong with my spelling? Content dot split. Okay, I want to split by carriage returns. You might want to, now there's a little bit of, there's debate on whether to use carriage returns in 2025, but just to be careful. Why? Because Windows use both carriage returns and new line character to break new lines. Okay, old Mac OSs use just carriage returns, while present Mac OS use new lines. So just to accommodate all edge cases, and to prevent counting a carriage return, as a character or as a word, so you account for that dot length. So So your split, if a carriage return exists, you split by it. If it doesn't, you just split by a new line. Okay, so that is count lines, if I'm not mistaken. You can split this into a variable, then return the variable, but to make our work look neat, I won't do that. Then what else? I think characters is what's left. So function count characters. We take in our content. I spell it. Content. Then we want to return simple. We want to return that byte length. Let me add the encoding here. So I think that's all. Okay, let's do longest line. So you can pause the video here and try to find this longest line on your own. This was something I added on my own, because the actual way you don't just learn by watching videos and watching tutorials and everything. You learn by actually suffering yourself. You put yourself through the difficulty of trying to extend an application, add one or two extra features, find bugs and improve on it. What is a better way I can do this? I don't know it all. I'm still learning. Learning is a continuous process. So you can find a vulnerability and create a pull request. That way you're contributing to open source and you're also learning on your own. So you can pause it and create your own solution or write it out. So what we want to do, this demo.html, I don't know if I rocketed this part, but just create a HTML file and do lorem and do this times like 100 or 1000 and just click enter. We want to find the longest line. Okay, so all these are lines of text. Okay, so what we want to do is we'll first have to define, we first have to split the content, because this is how the content will be returned to us. Okay, so we want to split each content by a new line. So when we split the content by a new line, we then have like an array of lines, an array of strings of text. Okay, then we want to look through each word in those texts that's in the array. So this is a word, this is a word, this is a word. So we would look through each, count each number of words, then store it in a variable. Okay, so let's say we count the first line and we get like 7. We count the second line, we get like 6. We count the third line, then we get something like 9. Meaning at first our longest line was 7, which was the first line, but we've encountered another line that is above that. So what do we have to do? We have to update the longest line to be 3, the third line, instead of the first line. So you swap, you look through each line, counting the word, then you swap any that is currently greater than the highest that you have. So that is just the logic there. It's simple JavaScript. So let's do that. So we'll first split it, and that's the thing that we did. That's the thing that we did here. So we will do lines. Let me copy that, and we'll do const lines. Okay, then we will do create a variable longest line. Okay, then we loop through it. Let line in. I keep saying in should be like Python also, of lines. My spelling is not correct. Let line of lines, then we'll loop through and we'll do our condition if line dot length is greater than whatever longest line that we currently have. We want to update longest line to be line dot length. Simple. Then we will return longest line. Then you do this program dot parse, and I've already explained what this does to you. So yeah, our application is actually done. So easy. So let's test it out. W is to return the number of words, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Error reading file. Oh, I passed in the wrong file name. So as you can see, that is what this line is for, to catch it. That's what this line is for. So let me correct that and then run it again. So you see, voila, we get words and it is being returned to us. Let me remove these console.logs as I have explained their uses. Okay, so let us run another. Let us run C for characters, right? Characters, get the number of characters. Okay, let us run B for bytes. We get the number of bytes. Let us run our help, and you see our help is returned to us. So I said I would mention something. You see, we have a dot argument. And what you can pass here is, if you want to override this, or you want to override this, okay, or you want to improve it, that is what you pass into the argument. They said define argument syntax for your command. The default is the argument is required. You can explicitly indicate this with angle brackets around that, or so, you know, if to say you want to, because Commander does handle a few things for us, you know, like the help message, the version, the usage, and all that. There are some default handling that it does there. So let's say you want to override that. That's where you pass in the argument and you specify your own usage, the amount of parameters that each of your commands require, and all that. But we don't need that, so I'll remove it. Let us run the version. Let's see, and our version number is returned to us. So yeah, our application is working correctly. Let us run this without any flags. Let's see, we'll get an error, no file specified. Okay, but we can improve this application. We can refactor this application to improve it. How? Okay, first of all, let me start with explaining why I had to spread this content. You might be reasoning, so why? Some characters, especially e.g. something like emojis or non-Latin characters, you know, they are multibyte. that is more than 1 byte. And when you're counting them, they are counted as code units and not a character. So when you use .length, it will count them as code units. So let's say you have an emoji. So let's say when .length is used, it is counted as code units. E.g., let's say you have a hugging. This will be counted as 2, or a family, a husband and wife, something like that, a family. This will be counted as 2. So all these characters will be counted as 2 characters because they are a combination of actually more than 1. So to prevent this, you would want to you use the spread operator, and so it will be able to properly handle these edge cases. Okay. Then another thing we can do, you see, every time we run our application, we get this WC2, which is I would say it's not necessary, it's a little bit overboard. So you can prevent that from happening and only return this WC2 when no argument is passed. Okay, you can. How will you do that? Simple, just move this from here, move it all the way to here. So when no argument is passed, you then return this. So let's try it now. We get that, and we get the error alongside it. We don't get a WC2 figlet text. Let me do the longest line because we haven't done that. Longest line is returning undefined. Wow. Let us check what our error is. For line of lines, if line.length is greater than longest line. Oh, this is our mistake. We didn't initialize it to a value. We are meant to initialize it to a value. My bad. So now we get a value 78. So yeah, I think our application is very much good to go. Okay, I said I will explain what a shebang is. Well, I will very soon. So our application is very much into go. How can you improve this application? Now, for the way you actually learn, I've already said the way you actually learn is by putting yourself through that difficulty of, trying to go beyond what you're taught. That is how you level up, and that is what I expect you to do throughout this playlist. So this is just the start. If you've enjoyed this video so far, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave your ideas, your suggestion, whatever you want me to discuss on, whatever challenge or lead code question or interview question you've seen that is very common that you want us to address. You can put it there, and I will certainly get back to you. So how can you improve this? There are many ways to improve this application. Now our application is limited. You can extend it to maybe creating a file if it doesn't exist, or let's say you can convert this. We're using JavaScript now. You can convert it to a TypeScript. I will try to create a TypeScript version and upload it to the GitHub. I will. You can convert it to TypeScript. You can we are going to do that here. Another downside our application has is, every time we run this without any flag, we get this no file. you can refactor this code to be able to track the options that need flags and the options that do not need flags, then return the error message only when a flag is passed but no file path is specified. Okay, instead of doing this. Okay, so you can improve on that. There are a lot of things you can do. You can extend this, add 1 or 2 more features, you know, and yeah. So another thing I would like us to do is, currently now, one downside of our application is that we have to, okay, so let's say I clear this and I put wc and I do l test file we are getting an error that wc is not defined. So the only way for us to run this our application is actually if we use Node. But when you use the actual wc tool in Unix like systems, you're not restricted by such. So one solution to this, one way to do that, is you will have to link this your application and make it globally available to your local system. I will show you mine. So let me see my first implementation. Let me see the out of this whole. I can do pwc and I get a response back because this package is available to my system, so I can run it even from my root directory, from my C drive, and it would read whatever code is linked to it. Because of this shebang there, it will makes the file an executable, and it handles that. So let me quickly explain. You can even do as little as just add another figlet text, maybe include your name, add a different styling and layout, something like that. So now we are to make this our tool accessible globally, we will have to pass a shebang. Okay, this will let Unix like system know that it is an executable Node.js script. And this usually, if to say our application is written in Python, we would actually convert this to Python, but because it is written in Node, that is why we have Node. Okay, so this, let me remove that. Okay, then in your package.json, open up your package.json and you create a bin. And passing the file path of your application. So I gave the name here is pwc, that is why I'm able to run pwc, and that is why in our shebang we have bin here. Okay, so if you want to be wc or whatever you want to call it, that is what you pass here as the key. Then you pass the file path. I put my own in source because it is actually located, it's not in the root directory. If yours is in the root directory, then you just pass the file name like that. Okay, you can make this file globally, like publish it to npm and people can download it using npm and install. That's one way to extend it. That way you get to learn how to do that. Okay, if you're using a Unix like system, then you have to run the chmod command to make the file executable. Then lastly, what you have to do is to navigate to your root directory. So currently my root directory is my root directory for this application is wc. So I would go to wc, sorry, I'll go to wc, then I'll run npm link. As simple as that. Once you link it globally from your root directory, make sure it is your root directory, then you can run it like a normal terminal command, like a regular command line tool. Okay, so as I've said, another way to extend this application is to add like your signature to it in Figlet text. Okay, maybe read their documentation, download the font, improve the font. It mustn't be too much. You mustn't do something extraordinary. That way you get to improve it. Okay, if you're on Windows, you don't need to run the chmod command. Okay, chmod is for Unix based system like Linux and Mac OS, to make the file executable and to give it execute permissions and write. Okay, so I've defined what shebang is. Okay, and I've said what the npm link is for. Alright, so with that, I will say we've come to the end of this application. We've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you loved it. I hope you learned one or two. If you have any questions, have any confusion, do write to me on Instagram, on Twitter, or formerly on X, formerly known as Twitter, or Telegram, and I will do my best to get back to you. Leave a comment, like, and do subscribe. Please put down your suggestions, put down your thoughts and your ideas. As I've said, I'm still learning. I do not know it all, and I do hope to see you guys in the next one. Cheers.